Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Truth or Demons podcast. I'm your host, Stevie, and today I have a very important episode for you all. Since beginning my podcast and meeting so many of you amazing people through it, I have learned some things in the community. Turns out many of you aren't aware of what your actual rights are when it comes to things you do and say within the community, and I've seen a lot of harassment and fear as a result. There's been countless legal threats of things like defamation circulating in the community. So, today, I am going to shed some light on the mystery of what is and isn't legal. And to help me do that, I have a very special guest. I reached out to a wonderful woman named Anna, who is an attorney, and she has agreed to come on the show and break down some things for you all. So, I will not keep you waiting any longer. Please enjoy the interview. Disclaimer: this guest in no way, shape, or form creates an attorney-client relationship, and this is not to be taken as specific legal advice to anything you may be dealing with. It is simply just expert testimony from a legitimate source. I repeat, this information is not to be misconstrued as forming an attorney-client relationship and is not to be taken as legal advice. If you are in need of legal help, please seek an attorney in your area who can provide you with a consultation. Please enjoy the interview. Okay, question 1. Can you please explain what defamation is and who can sue for it?
So defamation is where you have, we're talking mostly in the online space, so I'll kind of give the context for that. So defamation is going to be basically when someone is tarnishing somebody else's reputation. So if somebody has said something mean to you, it may or may not be defamation based on if it meets the actual elements of that law in your jurisdiction. So for example, some common elements of defamation are going to be that it must be an untrue statement that is said or written or in some way published to a third party, and it harms the person's reputation in some monetary way. Okay, so those are some common elements of defamation in many jurisdictions. Additionally, when you have public figures, so maybe people online, influencers, there are additional elements that need to be met, such as the statement must have been said with actual malice. So they're going to analyze the intent behind the person who said the statement. Now, sometimes there's also statute of limitations you have to consider, whether it's within that 1 year period, 2 year period, whatever the statute in your state or jurisdiction is going to decide. So basically, defamation is where somebody has done something to ruin someone else's reputation. And then when you feel that that has been done, what you really have to do is look at your jurisdiction, your own state or their state where maybe the statement was said, and look at what are the exact elements of defamation so it meets the requirements legally.
Okay, awesome. That makes a lot of sense. Okay, so what are the chances of a defamation case going to court?
So there are many defamatory statements said online. We all know that if you have ever gone in a YouTube comment section, I mean, we know there are thousands upon thousands of defamatory statements probably being said every day. The percentage of those that even get a cease and desist letter, which is kind of a pre-step to litigation, probably very, very small. And then even out of all of those statements that are said that get cease and desist letters, the chances of that going to court also infinitely small, like 0.0001, less than that. So going to court for defamation is very expensive. You have to file an actual lawsuit. So, you're out 5 to 10K immediately just by having to go hire a lawyer to file this lawsuit. So the chances of that happening when it comes to things in the online space, relatively low, just because there's such a high volume and infinite volume basically of defamatory statements. I don't know any, influencer who is going through every comment section of theirs and sending out cease and desist and then filing lawsuit. I mean, it would be too difficult to be doing.
Right, yeah, for sure. So is it a state or a federal court issue?
So it's typically going to be a state issue. Now, it gets a little bit tricky in the online space in particular because you sometimes have people uh, saying things from one state who maybe live in another, or the other person lives in another state. So it can get a little bit tricky, and you're always going to kind of pick one state that you're going to file the lawsuit in, but it is for the most cases, they're really going to be state issues, and you are going to pick the state maybe that has the more favorable statute of limitation and this and that. That's kind of a decision the lawyer you hire will make with you.
Okay, awesome. So what is an example of a viable defamation claim?
So viable defamation claim would be something that meets all of the legal requirements. So just as an example, and I'm not exactly sure who's listening to this in terms of, are they more creators, are they more viewers of content, or exactly where the audience is going to fall. I guess nobody knows till they start listening. But let's say that you are not a content creator, but maybe you're just a consumer of content, and you have decided to give your thoughts one day. Maybe you decide, okay, I'm going to post on Twitter what I think of this person's YouTube video, and you say, XYZ person is ugly in this video. Why is that statement not defamation? And that is because it is an opinion. You are giving your opinion. That is not a viable defamatory statement, not a viable claim. However, if you go on Twitter and say XYZ person, um, you know, is not an authority on ABC topic because they don't get this topic properly. So you're actually now starting to make a statement about someone, especially when it's going to their true reputation. Now you have to think, okay, is this meeting all the elements of defamation? Would it be a viable defamation claim? Is it an untrue statement? If it is untrue, like maybe they are actually credentialed, maybe they went to school for something, whatever. If you're actually saying something not true about them, that meets the first element. And then is it a harmful statement? Probably, if it's going, to their reputation. And then is it being said to a public figure? Maybe are you saying it with, then you have to consider, are you saying it with actual malice? Yeah, when you're going on there publicly, it's, probably going to be actual malice. And then was it published to a third party? Yeah, if you're posting it online, it's going to be to a third party. You're not sitting in your bedroom writing in your diary. That's not defamation. But if you're, if it's being conveyed to another party, if you're texting it to someone, if you're emailing it, if you're posting it online, those are all defamatory because they're being distributed somehow. However, if you're just jotting down notes in your own bedroom, no, that's not going to be considered defamatory. Then you have to think, oh, what about statute of limitations? Okay, that other person has about a year or so, whatever the law says. It's usually generally between 1 to 3 years for defamation. They only have a short window of time for them to bring this case. So, is it meeting all of those elements? If that's, and in that case, yeah, that statement would meet all those elements. So that would be a viable defamation claim for them to pursue onto you. Now, when you consider, are they going to sue you in terms of, is it viable? You have to think of it pragmatically. What are the damages that you're doing? Do you think that if I go tweet that, is that going to cause that person not to get a future podcast deal or brand deal or some other professional opportunity in some way? Would that stop them from that? If that's going to stop it, those are the damages that can be shown.
Okay, awesome.
So
That makes
that's
a lot of
what, when
sense.
you bring a lawsuit, you want to think about what you're going to get out of it. And that's what a lot of people are thinking, is when they file a defamation lawsuit, how much money are they going to get from you? And some of the things you have to consider when you think about the damages amount is what opportunities have been lost because of these defamatory statements.
Okay, awesome. Now that makes sense. Okay, so my next question is, what is a cease and desist letter, and what does it mean if you receive one?
So a cease and desist letter is typically just a notice, and it's usually given to anybody, who hires a lawyer. So anybody can hire a lawyer to send a cease and desist letter. And it's just saying that, hey, stop this or else I'm going to sue. Now, cease and desist letters, a lot of people either feel like they should totally ignore them or they get really freaked out by them. I feel like there's very little understanding in the public of what it actually means. But what it is it's actually just a very amicable way to attempt to resolve a situation without going to litigation. Many lawyers, especially if you work in that any sort of intellectual property or reputation management space, I would say I myself probably send anywhere from 500 to 1,000 cease and desist per week. on behalf of my client. So cease and desist letters that, and I'm one attorney with a, relatively small practice. So think about that in terms of how common cease and desist letters are. Okay. They're very, very common things. So it is not meaning that all of those cases are going to turn into a lawsuit or will be sued, because maybe we've considered a lot of factors and we consider, okay, maybe we meet 3 out of 4 elements and the fourth element's very weak. Let's try to resolve this amicably before we need to, incur costs to file a lawsuit that may or may not be the most high chance of success, right? So cease and desist letters are a good option for that. They are, I would say, really, in almost all cases, a cease and desist letter is a necessary first step prior to a lawsuit, because courts and judges typically do not like it when you file a lawsuit blind and you don't give the other party an opportunity to correct. However, a cease and desist letter is just a request. It's just a demand, a request to stop doing something. It is not anything that holds any legal weight. But that being said, it is not a court order. You're not going to go to jail if you don't listen to a cease and desist, anything like that. However, like I said, that being said, if you ignore a cease and desist letter and it actually has some sort of valid claims in there of, requesting you stop doing something that is valid, then you ignore it, and then that person ends up suing you, the courts are going to look badly on you that, hey, you could have not wasted all this time, all this money, and you could have just stopped, doing whatever they said to, and you chose not to, and now look where we are. Like, you're going to be penalized a little bit more.
Okay, yeah, that makes
Don't
sense.
ignore a cease and desist, but just make sure that you actually understand what's being said in there and that the claims are viable and things. Don't freak out about it, though.
That's good advice. I have also put in my disclaimer that a lot of states, if you just go and look online and find an attorney, you might be able to get a free consultation to talk about that, or at least not be paying a super huge amount to get some actual legal advice on your letter.
Yeah, so typically you will not get actual legal advice in a consultation, but
Okay.
they will be able to tell you, they will be able to give you legal information. So there's just that distinction. So legal advice is actually going to be where they're evaluating your case and they're recommending steps for you to take and working through things with you. They will be able to provide you legal information in terms of, okay, here are, this is the statute of the law they're looking at, and, these are the kind of things that would be evaluated if they had to do a case evaluation. But many lawyers are able to evaluate things like defamation. If you get like a cease and desist for defamation, many lawyers are going to be able to just answer a couple of questions for you for sure. uh it when you hire a lawyer also to solve those kinds of problems, there's different amounts you would need to pay a lawyer anyway, and sometimes it's not going to be as expensive as you think. Of course, if you're actually being sued, if a lawsuit has been filed against you, you're in a bad spot. You're probably not getting out of that less than 10K, even if you negotiate and settle. So when you get a cease and desist, I mean, you can hire a lawyer for a couple $1,000s and have that problem solved. That's much less than when you are going to be actually sued, which what typically happens, in my experience, for the people that end up getting sued is that we've sent a cease and desist letter and they've ignored it, and we have no choice but to move forward into litigation because reasonable attempts to settle out of court haven't happened. So it's always a good idea to try to research and reach out to attorneys in your state, or that handle in general reputation and intellectual property issues. So you want to be able to gather information for yourself so you can make an informed choice. I mean, if you get a cease and desist letter that's totally bogus, no, you're probably not, and you can very clearly on its face tell that, probably not going to want to hire an attorney to deal with that because it doesn't matter.
Right, correct. And I have actually seen a couple of those. So,
Yeah, we've all seen a couple
yeah.
of those.
So, my next question is, how can you tell whether a cease and desist letter is legitimate? What are some things to look for in the letter that would tell you that?
So, this is going to be very hard for a non-attorney to do, because typically a cease and desist letter, if it is a really well drafted cease and desist letter by somebody's, legal team who's legitimately looking to stop this behavior, here's a couple of things that it should include. It should include what the actual behavior or statement or actual, violation was. Okay. It cannot be like, hey, shut down your YouTube channel because you're crazy. Like that's not a legitimate cease and desist. Okay. They need to be identifying what's going on actually. And then typically they're going to also include evidence of that. So that's going to be either screenshots or maybe a script of what was said, or, some sort of, they're going to include that in the letter of what you actually did. Okay. That is a good sign. That, and when I'm training attorneys on how to draft cease and desist letters, we always say the strongest ones are going to be very specific about what's going on and have evidence and be able to point to the violation. And then you also want to include, they also would include the statute or what's being violated. And then they would also, so whether if it's, defamation, there will be some code that's cited. Some it'll, cite it and then it'll say what it's a violation of. And then there will also be information about a demand. What do they want? Do they want you to stop? Do they want you to repay something? Do they want you to, I don't know, destroy some sort of inventory maybe that you have? Whatever it is their demands are, they're going to list those out. So those are ways that you can tell they're being serious about wanting to solve this problem. You also want to see if it's coming from an attorney. Anybody can go on ChatGPT and write a cease and desist and send it out. But if they've hired an attorney to stop certain behavior, then they're probably a little bit more serious about it than if they are just sending you things on their own. If you feel also that you have been violated in some way and you want to send a cease and desist letter, I strongly discourage you from ever sending a cease and desist demand or request to stop type of letter without it being from an attorney, because the other party, it will so damage your credibility. It's almost impossible to come back from that, even if you later hire an attorney. You also will probably miscite the law and do a lot of things that can do damage. It's kind of just everything you say can and will be held against you. This is same in these situations. So whether or not, though, the actual claims in a cease and desist are valid, very difficult for a non-attorney to evaluate, because you actually have to do legal analysis for that. So if you've said something online or posted something or, texted something to someone, maybe it was falling in the realm of defamation, but maybe it's missing an element. And that's something that has to be actually evaluated, and then, probably evaluated specifically thinking about the jurisdiction and a lot of other things going on. So that can be, kind of impossible for someone unless you have like an experienced attorney who can evaluate that. But in general, if you get, if you're seeing the red flags of a cease and desist, it's not coming from an attorney, it's not pointing to what was actually going on. One thing you can do is, and what your attorney is going to do, is if you get one of those vague general cease and desist, the first thing I typically do will just reach out to the other side and I'll say, hey, what are you talking about? Like, you said this YouTube video is defamation. Or sometimes they even will be like, your whole YouTube channel is defamation. Like, we have to say what statements are defamatory. We're happy to, remove them, but we don't know what you're talking about. So we say if they're defamation, we'll remove them, but we have no idea what statements you're talking about. So you can ask for clarification. That's typically a good step. Like I said, I wouldn't recommend an individual do that, but that's probably what your attorney, if you hire one, that what they will do is seek clarification. And then typically a cease and desist letter will also have some sort of deadline. They'll say, respond to us in 10 business days, or sometimes they list an actual date. You do not want to ignore that beyond that date. It's bad form, and judges and courts do not like it.
Awesome. Okay, yeah, that helps a lot. Okay, so my next question. In this community, we deal with a lot of paranormal and things that aren't necessarily things that can be proven, such as paranormal experiences, haunted or possessed items, etc. How does a court handle a case such as this, where there is typically no tangible proof and only word of mouth?
Okay, so that's a really interesting point. Now, I don't know like the examples of defamatory statements that may or may not be said, but if there's truly nothing that can be proven, I mean, truth is the ultimate defense to defamation. Um, so if you are, saying something and then it can be disproven or proven, that's an easy way out. However, when nothing can be proven, then truth is never going to be a defense, which means that if you say something, the other party can't prove that it's true or not. So they're not going to be able to you are not going to be able to use defamation truth as a defense if they sue you for defamation. So that can be a little bit tricky in those terms. So what I would say in those circumstances, if you want to be so what there's a risk then that because you can't use truth as a defense, that it would be, the courts would maybe favor more on the side that it is defamatory, because if it's not possible for it to be truthful, if it's definitely false what you're, saying or talking about, then that's not a defense. So what is an alternative that you could do, or a little caveat, is you could put disclaimers in your content. So you could say that we're discussing this not in a defamatory way, we're giving our opinions. Or you could say, in my opinion, XYZ, or I believe XYZ. So you can say, I don't know this for a fact, I'm just speculating, or this is just me giving my thoughts and opinions. You can use that type of terminology to make it understood that you're not saying this with authority, and you're not trying to defame someone and harm their reputation. You're just saying, I want to discuss this, as my opinion, and see what your thoughts are, and things like that. You can use that specific type of language to absolve yourself of some of the liability.
Okay, great. That makes sense. So, on the other end of that spectrum, if say a debunker on YouTube accuses a paranormal group of faking paranormal content, and then that paranormal group that was accused of faking goes after that debunker, what would that situation look like?
Okay, so you're saying that somebody is out there saying that, hey, this is like a haunted house, and then somebody is saying that it's not a haunted house, and then they're suing them. Okay. So yeah, that's obviously not necessarily something that's going to be able to be proven in court. No judge is going to do that. Um, but what's going to happen is that person who is debunking or saying it's not a haunted house, I mean, yeah, they can say, we don't think it's a haunted
What if
house.
they have evidence of like proof of saying like the story they're telling is actually false, and here's the actual proof of evidence of a true story?
Oh, if they have actual evidence and truth, then they can just say, we're presenting the facts as
Okay.
they are facts.
Awesome. See,
So,
that's what we're dealing with a lot of, because our debunking community will present the evidence and the facts, and then the paranormal groups that we're debunking will come back at us and say that we're being defamatory.
okay, so there's people out there that are basically, maybe they're falsifying evidence or making up stories, and you're debunking that.
Yes.
So, but the whole premise of the secondary content, the debunking content, would be to be commenting on the first type of comment, right? So
Yes.
those are arguments against it's not defamation. You're yeah, it is meeting the elements in the sense that it's you're maybe harming their reputation, but it's hard for them to prove that what the debunker statements are false, unless they can like, let's say someone is like holding up a sheet and they're saying this is a ghost, and then the debunker is posting a big panorama video of them showing everything, right? Of actually falsifying evidence. It's hard to go back and forth on that, right? The courts are going to be able to say that, okay, well, these are the facts. They're just saying that this was falsified, right? So, in that sense, it's going to be hard for the other person to sue, because the first original person to sue, because they're not going to be able to disprove facts themselves, right? Or actual like video evidence, whatever it is that would be there. So, courts are going to look at that as, is somebody trying to disprove an actual fact, or are you just talking about abstract concepts? That's the first thing we need to think about in this context, right? Is when you say they're debunking things, are they actually things that they have true evidence for that would be like an actual fact? Then great, because you can't dispute a fact. Now, could the other person sue still the debunker? Could the person, saying that it's paranormal activity, sue the debunker? Yeah, they can. It's America. Anybody can sue anybody. Does not mean you have a case and you're going to win. Can they send a cease and desist? Yeah, I'm sure they probably send like 100 a day, with that kind of thing. So whether or not it's a viable claim, an easy way, your lawyer, this is like very low cost like lawyer work they can handle in like half an hour. So I would say, if you actually get a cease and desist in this situation, just because these are so fact specific and circumstance specific, just have a lawyer kind of evaluate what's going on. But if there's truly just facts that you're presenting, it's going to be hard for somebody to disprove, to say that it's truly defamation, because it's hard to dispute a fact. And then, even let's say like you have received a video that shows that it was false, right? And so you're presenting the video you received, but then you later maybe you find out the video is like AI or falsified or something. You didn't present that video with malice or ill will or intent. You presented that with the intention to present facts. So that's also not going to be defamatory. So there's so many, caveats and variations on these circumstances and facts. It's hard to give, a blanket answer generally of what would be right or wrong, but I would say it's hard to dispute a true fact. But these circumstances are so fluid. It's a very easy legal analysis, that an attorney can do. But I would recommend, if you have been sued or if you've received a cease and desist from somebody like that, they are clearly doing so in order to attempt to protect their reputation. But it does not necessarily mean they have viable claims. So you just need to talk to an attorney about it for your particular case.
Awesome. Great. Thank you. That was such good information. I really appreciate that.
Of course.
So my next question, if you spoke the truth from a personal experience and subsequently experienced threats, coercion, doxing, or harassment as a result, what are your options legally?
Okay, so you spoke the truth from personal experience in terms of like a paranormal incident?
Yes.
Oh, I mean, so you're going out there, you're saying something that happened to you, and then you're receiving bad feedback in the form of doxing and threats. I mean, there are different ways to go after those people who are doing it in different ways. For doxing, especially, you have to consider what are the ages of people, are there any minors involved? That can be very serious crimes and also civil infractions sometimes. So you can go after people for that. It depends again on the jurisdiction and is it crossing federal lines, things like that. It can get very serious in certain circumstances, especially if somebody is harmed as a result of it or there's a imminent threat of harm or anything. And then what are some of the other things that are happening beyond doxing? Harassment?
Harassment, yes. And also
Okay.
some of the experiences are not paranormal. They're in the paranormal community, but they're more normal everyday things like experiencing a person's behavior and then speaking on what happened to them from that person.
Okay, so just in general personal experiences. Okay, so if you anything you ever do or say that you experience a backlash for, you can hire a lawyer to send a cease and desist for harassment as well. In certain circumstances, harassment is going to be illegal and or a civil infraction. So it has to meet the certain thresholds though of being true harassment. So you need to do like a lawyer needs to do that legal and analysis for that. So if somebody is calling you 20 times a day or they're sending insane emails and text messages even after you've told them to stop, I mean, yeah, you're going to be able to have some recourse for that or you can get potentially a restraining order. So there's lots of legal avenues to protect yourself, but you need to make sure the biggest thing in those circumstances, the biggest thing is you must manage those issues as soon as they happen. So do not let these things go on for 6 months, a year. Like it's never in those circumstances. There is something to be said that sometimes people get bored and stop, but when harassment tends to escalate and continue, it's usually going to continue to get worse and worse in the, worst case scenarios. So you want to handle those situations appropriately. Having a lawyer send a mean cease and desist, stop this harassment or we will file police reports and sue you can be very viable option in that circumstance, right? Or potentially, like I said, getting that restraining order, filing some sort of, cyber crime it really depends on the situation of how the harassment and backlash is occurring, but there are legal avenues to protect yourself.
Okay, awesome. Perfect. Thank you. Next question. What if you are being threatened with legal action directly to you or indirectly to others? What should you do?
What do you mean indirectly to others?
Okay, so for example, you are hearing from a third party that so and so is going to sue you, though they have done nothing. They have not sent a letter or done anything actually. They're just saying they're going to.
Okay, I would say just saying somebody's going to do something is not, just verbally saying it is not really, I wouldn't give that too much threat. It's not that it's easy to sue people. People sue people every millisecond in this country. However, it is a process. You have to hire a lawyer. The lawyer has to do a case evaluation We have to draft and file a complaint. We have to pick the jurisdiction, the venue. You have to file court fees. Like, it is not just a snap of the fingers to sue someone. Okay, it's not that easy, and you're not really gonna, and when you're filing a lawsuit, like I said, just filing a lawsuit costs between 5 to 10K. So that's not something you're really doing on a whim. Even, I work for Fortune 100 companies who are the most wealthy corporations in the world. They do not give me blanket permission to file lawsuits on their behalf. Okay, every cent that we spend with their legal team is scrutinized. Nobody is shelling out free money to sue random people. Okay, that's not what it is. Maybe that we have a blanket license to send cease and desist on their behalf or other things on their behalf, but not to file a lawsuit. Filing a lawsuit is a serious thing. And once a lawsuit is filed, nobody's getting out of it, not the plaintiff or defendant, without many other legal steps that also cost a lot of money. A whole lawsuit can cost anywhere from like 200K to millions and millions of dollars. And it is, once you initiate a lawsuit, you're not really getting out of it, even as the person suing. So it's a serious thing. I would say a verbal threat is not very credible. If somebody sends you a cease and desist, especially if it's from an attorney and you hire an attorney who says, yeah, this is a credible thing, that's something to be taken seriously. A verbal, like, third party down the line, you're playing telephone with people threat. I mean, it's hard for me to know like the context and things of that, but I would say if a client came to me with that information, I would say, at this point in time, take no action. If they send a cease and desist, we'll reevaluate things.
Okay, awesome. That makes a lot of sense. Next question. If you have been harassed to the point of threats against your life or your property, what are your legal courses of action?
Okay, so this is going to now depend on how did the threats come? Were they written, verbal? What state is the person in? Do you know the identity of the person? So this is death threats, though, are a serious thing, and you should nip them in the bud immediately. So you need to hire an attorney very quickly. They need to be, if necessary, filing police reports, filing CIA, FBI reports, cybercrime reports. They need to be potentially, you need to gather information about the person's IP address, uncover their identity, things like that. So action needs to be taken when you have death threats, and that is something to be done swiftly. There's also, if you cannot afford an attorney in those cases, you need to call law school clinics and say that, hey, I'm getting death threats and I need pro bono assistance. That is, I would say, death threats are a serious thing. People are really crazy out there. I myself have gotten death threats, and I think that they, just it's like a sick thing to happen, but you need to take care of that immediately. That's not something you can wait and hold off on.
Awesome. Thank you. That's very valuable information. I really appreciate that one. Okay, next one. Is there an ultimate defense that a person has against a claim for defamation? What if the person was telling the truth or speaking from personal experience and then they were accused of defamation?
So truth is the ultimate defense to defamation, of course. That's, it is what it is. The only way that you can still get in trouble for telling the truth is if it meets, if it's not covered by free speech, which is very difficult to do. I can really quick tell you what is not. I have to Google it because it's like part of constitutional law, but there's only a few things that are considered not free speech. It's going to be child pornography, fraud, obscenity, which is speech that appeals to the which depicts sexual conduct in an offensive way, fighting words, so words that are intended to cause injury or incite immediate breach of peace, or true threats, like a serious expression of intent to commit unlawful violence against a person or group, like a death threat. So there's very specific things that are not covered by free speech. In America, we have great, freedom to say whatever we feel like saying, especially in particular about other people and about other things. So you're allowed to go on here and, say whatever you want about Trump or Biden or whoever else, you want to say anything about. No, you're not going to get in trouble for that. Will there potentially be other consequences, such as, getting fired, this and that? Yeah, but you're not going to get in legal trouble for that. So if you have been if people are saying you're not allowed, it's defamation to say certain things or to talk about what happened, an experience maybe that happened to you, or your belief about something, I mean, they can say that all they want, but are they going to sue you for defamation? I mean, it's got to meet the elements. But just, in general, just a good rule and something to think about is that you have a lot of free speech in America. So you can say whatever you want. Should you think about the consequences? Yeah, maybe, your parents won't like it, your job won't like it, et cetera, et cetera. There can be private life consequences, but in terms of, is it truly defamation? Is it truly, illegal in that sense? Really has to meet those elements, or it has to be some one of the other items that would not be covered by free speech.
Okay, awesome. All right, next question. What are some steps that people can take to mitigate harassment that they receive from speaking publicly? For example, if someone is trying to silence them, what is some advice based on your experience that you would give them?
Okay, so no one should really be able to silence you. The only way someone can silence you is if you are truly defaming them in terms of it's meeting all the elements, or it's falling into one of the categories, that child porn violence, et cetera, et cetera. So those are things that are not free speech and people you can get in trouble for, or you don't have the right to say necessarily. However, in terms of somebody silencing you, I mean, you can waive your First Amendment right to free speech with a gag order. And I would say in some circumstances, it is great to do that. You can sign an NDA in those cases if you're getting paid appropriately. So if somebody is trying to silence you, is and they're telling you to, hey, stop saying that, I don't know, maybe respond. One option, sometimes what we do is we respond and we say like, hey, we're happy to not discuss this anymore for X amount of money. But you've not given us anything that would give us motivation to waive our First Amendment right to free speech. Now, you don't want to be considered as blackmail or anything like that, though. So that has to be worded extremely carefully. Do not do that on your own. Only an attorney should be doing that with appropriate language to mitigate any risk to you. But you are able to be silenced, I would say, for a price if you choose to do so, and that's a decision you can make. However, no one can really silence you in America. If they are harassing you or threatening you, you need to take legal action against them, because that's not allowed. If somebody's giving you death threats because of something you're saying, I mean, you got to take care of that issue. But you can't, if they want to silence you and maybe you want to cut a deal, I mean, you can consider that. I would say though, like, if someone's trying to silence you, I don't think that's a thing. That's not a thing. What is really going on there is they are harassing you, and you need to take care of the harassment.
Awesome. That was amazing. And that is it for my questions, but I would like to give you the opportunity to please tell us where we can find you social media wise and your website and any information on you. I would really love to plug you and thank you so very much for coming on my show today.
No, thank you so much. These were such interesting questions, and I'm it's such a interesting world, because it's so it's so out there in terms of there is no truth that we're talking about in a lot of the cases, right? So people are claiming it's true, claiming it's not true, and then when you consider the law, it's just a really interesting, reflection of it, because whatever you or me at least personally believes, it means very little, because at the end of the day, it's really going to only matter what the judge or jury believes. And it's funny to think about it that way when you think about the concept of truth in your world and beliefs and things. So I'm so happy that you invited me on. Thank you so much. Very interesting, questions and all that. But my name is Anna Juneja, and you can find me on my socials under that name at ANAJUNEJA, or my website is ANALAW.com. So just analaw.com. So I'm pretty easy to find. And yeah, if anybody has like defamation questions, we have attorneys in almost every state, but not every state. So you can always, contact us on my website or anything if you have defamation statements or defamation questions about your state. And if we don't have someone who knows that law in that state, I can try to connect you with someone who does.
That is awesome. Thank you so much for that too. I really appreciate it.
Of course.
I will let you go for now, and I super, super appreciate you coming on today. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
You too. Have a wonderful day. Bye.
Thanks. Bye. Thank you again so much to Anna for coming on my show and giving us this very invaluable information. I so appreciate it. Thank you everyone for watching and listening. Until next time.